So we're going to discuss Monarch Legacy of Monsters Season 2 first. And I normally would have asked Jim, who kind of watched it with me, and Lucas to join so we could discuss this. But in truth, Lucas hasn't watched it. Last I checked, he has not watched it and has seemingly no interest in watching it. And okay, that's fine. And I wound up having to not include Jim here because I ended up watching the final episode. And, you know, we were kind of streaming it together, watching it together. And he just wasn't there for the final episodes. Our schedules never synced, so he never got to see the final episode. I, however, kind of did in passing. So unfortunately, it's just me talking about this. Congratulations on moving to a new house, Godzilla Kiru. Now, for those of you who don't know, when I saw season 1 of this show, I absolutely adored it. I loved it so much it kind of blew me away. I was not expecting to like season 1 that much at all, and I wound up absolutely adoring it. And I know a lot of fans didn't like it because they didn't like the fact that, hey, they didn't have much for Godzilla in it, and you know, things like that, which some of that I think is valid. You know, you come for a show advertising Godzilla, and suddenly Godzilla's not really in it. I can understand the criticism. I've come to accept it amongst the fan community, and I can at least understand it. I disagreed because I liked how character-driven the story of Season 1 was. I liked all the twists and turns Season 1 took, and I really liked all of just all the character stuff. You know, I didn't really care for the 3 kids, but I loved Wyatt, and I loved Keiko, and I loved Hiroshi. I thought they were all kind of fascinating characters to look at and study and discuss. Bill Randa, especially. I thought they were all, and what happens to them was really interesting. I loved the Axis Mundi, I guess it was called. I really enjoyed all that stuff. I love the time dilation stuff, which I've always been kind of a sucker for ever since I saw Interstellar. And I dug it. I really enjoyed it. And I was not expecting it to be this kind of show. And I was so blown away by how much I cared. Was it perfect? No. I'm not saying it was perfect. But I'm saying that I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to end up liking it. And that was a pleasant, pleasant surprise. Now comes Season 2. Season 2. It was okay. Season 2 was okay at best. My overall thoughts is I could barely finish it. That final episode, I was done by that point. I ended up watching that, I think, almost 2 months after, or a full month after it had finally aired. Only then did I watch the final episode. That's how little I cared about it by that point. And a lot of that is because this is what I thought Season 1 was going to be. I thought Season 1 was going to be an awful lot more like what Season 2 is. It's basically a monster of the season. The monster is the problem, and the humans are elected to stop it. They have to solve this problem. That is as bare bones basic of a giant monster plot as you can possibly get. And that wasn't Season 1 at all. There was kind of like this background giant monster thing going on, that bat-looking creature thing, which I liked. I did like it, but that was a background thing, right? It was far more about Wyatt Russell and his trials and tribulations and him coming to terms with things. It was just a very well-done characters. Finding Keiko, very well-done character story. Also full of great performances. Well, this is very plot-driven, very you know, yeah, I'll say it was very generic, very to the point. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there's obviously an audience for that kind of story. I mean, Godzilla's been telling that story for now 70 years, for God's sake, but, or, stories like it. But this is just more of what I thought, you know, season one was going to be. And so this is more of a traditional story than of season one. That being said, I did really enjoy the addition of Kong's presence in this season. I did like that. I like how that kind of throws a wrench into the trope. Kong kind of throws a wrench into the overall tropes of the whole thing. I do like the fact that it is Kong who ultimately solves the problem. And I do kind of like that. And I like the contrast. And this is something I think the MonsterVerse has done extraordinarily well, is contrasting how Godzilla acts about something to how Kong acts to something. And the differences between the two. And again, the show, I think, does a good job at kind of selling that, despite the fact that really Kong's in it a little bit more than Godzilla. Godzilla basically just has a cameo in this season more than anything else. And granted, it's pretty badass when he shows up, I won't lie. But that's all it is. It's an extended cameo. While he has this constant presence through season one, he doesn't have that here in season two. And as I said earlier, season one was such a wonderfully character-driven story. Now, the three kids, they're fucking basically adults, but the three kids drove me crazy. I thought they were unbelievably boring and stupid, and I didn't really care for any of them. Why did I say Wyatt? It's because it's played by Wyatt Russell. Yeah, that's why I said I meant Shaw. Shaw, on the other hand, was not boring. He was unbelievably entertaining. His mystery was unbelievably interesting, and Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell play it very well. And also his relationship with Keiko, I thought was very well handled, very well done. It was complex without being overly so, without overly getting bogged down with a lot of the relationship details and things like that. And I think Keiko herself was a very interesting character, and I like the twists and turns that her character goes through throughout season one. Also, I really like the dynamic with the father. I think his name is Hiroshi. I loved how gray he is. He's a decent person, but he did some really bad things. And it's not over the top like Emma Russell, right? Within Godzilla King of the Monsters, where she has absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever. She is pure evil. She did not deserve a bit of a redemption arc, the one that she got within Godzilla King of the Monsters. No, Hiroshi does. Hiroshi does deserve a bit of a redeeming arc, and he's kind of getting one. Hiroshi Randa, he's just much more believable, and he's much more of a rounded guy. And I was blown away by all of that. Like, shockingly complex and nuanced character stuff that I just did not expect from what was advertised as a Godzilla series. All of that is waved off in season two, right? All of the stuff that season one ends with just gets kind of hand waved off in the opening of season two. Like, Shaw's sacrifice at the end of season one just gets kind of waved off because literally 5 minutes later, it seems that they rescue him. And that kind of drives me crazy because it just kind of makes a lot of that tension of that final great episode, that season finale of season one, just kind of feel for naught. And I hate it when shows do this. You can at least establish, I think, that it took a lot more effort than what was planned to get Shaw back, and that it was longer. There was a longer stretch of time than what was actually shown. Instead of it literally being almost right after the finale of season one, suddenly Apex is bringing Shaw back. And that bringing Shaw back is ultimately what fucks up Titan X, which is the kaiju of the season. And I must be honest, I officially, I think, lost faith in season 2 as a whole. During the episode where Shaw is talking to himself, where his future self or his self in the present is talking to himself in the past while he's still stuck in Axis Mundi. And I get what the writers were trying to do here. I understand it, but they broke their own rules with this sequence. And because they broke their own rules, now this whole dynamic makes no sense at all anymore. Right? It makes no sense within the confines of the universe. It breaks the rules of Axis Mundi. I'm very aggravated because of it. I hate to say it. And I remember when I was watching it with my friend Jim, I was all over it. I was like, this is awful. Well, I hate this episode because it was irking me so bad, because they could have done something really cool here, but they didn't do it. Which is unfortunately a problem that a lot of time travel or things that deal with time dilation do. And that is to kind of hand wave some of the rules away for the sake of the plot or for the sake of character. And I'm like, because you could do things with your character and with the plot by adhering to those rules that you've established. You just have to be a little bit more creative, and clearly the writers were not. And the big reason why that scene drove me up the wall, or that entire series of scenes drove me up the wall, is because according to the rules that this universe has established, and the between our world and that of Axis Mundi, Shaw should remember talking to himself. Why doesn't he remember talking to himself? Now, you could have really played that up. Now, I understand why Shaw in Axis Mundi, played by Wyatt Russell at this point, wouldn't remember this, wouldn't recognize this. But Shaw, as played by Kurt Russell in the present, would remember it. But he clearly has absolutely no recollection of any of this ever happening. And that is the thing that drives me crazy, because I think it would have been really cool conceptually if Shaw realizes in this moment, in the present, so Kurt Russell, I'll just say Kurt Russell realizes in the present, in this moment, that he's kind of fulfilling his own prophecy in a way, right? That he is basically the alpha and omega in terms of his own universe, or his own character. That he remembers this conversation exactly. And so now he has to kind of play that role of trying to keep things on track as to how he remembered it. And there could have been something really cool about that, how it was inevitable that it ultimately would be him that kind of saves the day. Because remember, in that sequence, Wyatt Russell finds Keiko, and he wants to go and save her, he wants to go help her. And it is ultimately Kurt Russell that says, don't do that, you will fuck up the timeline, you will fuck everything up more than it already is, don't go. And because of that, and because of his honesty with himself, he manages to preserve the timeline that we currently have. And I think it would have been such a cool idea had it been where Kurt Russell realizes in this moment that this universe, in terms of the past and interacting with the present and stuff like that, because of Axis Mundi and the rules associated with that, suddenly realize that he's kind of become a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. That he can't change, no matter how hard he tries, he can't change the past. It is set in stone. It is written. the Dead Sea Scrolls, as Evangelion would kind of say it would be. And to me, that would have set a really cool dynamic had they actually done something about the self-fulfilling prophecy idea that would play very well into Shaw's character. I would have liked it. I would have been on board, and I think it would have been a lot cooler than what we ultimately ended up getting. And unfortunately, that's not what happened, and it did. It drove me absolutely up the wall. Absolutely up the wall. It was driving me crazy. So, unfortunately, a great concept that the writers just totally destroyed. Now, Titan X, on the other hand, Titan X, kind of a generic monster with no real staying quality, looks kind of cool, but it also kind of reminds me of like an Ultraman monster. Where it's like, oh, they look really cool and they do some really weird shit. But that's about it. You know, no real overall character to the monster to make them memorable, or to make it memorable, or to make it really have much for staying power within this universe itself. Other than that, it does have a really kind of cool and grody design. I really do like the design. It is really gross, and I applaud the designers. I just wish they they did something with it. And I think that's overall the problem that I have with Season 2 of Monarch. And that is, there's just so much cool shit that the writers just seemingly did not care about. And it doesn't look like there was a writing crew change from Season 1 to Season 2. And that's really unfortunate. I think it's really unfortunate. That being said, I do think Titan X... it reminded me a lot of Jiger from Gamera versus Jiger in many ways. Maybe not in design at all, you know, stuff like that. Ironically, and it wouldn't surprise me if they actually did kind of get inspired by Jiger in some ways, because the American title for Gamera versus Jiger was Gamera versus Monster X, and Jiger, while called Jiger in the movie itself or in the dub, is called Monster X in the title. So it could have been inspired by it. It could have been the idea. And that sort of played into the first big twist of Season 2, which is that Titan X is actually a female, and not only is a female, but is pregnant. Cool idea. Very cool idea. I also think the parasites that cover her are really gross. Or are those her babies? Or are those parasites? I can't quite remember. But I do like the idea of the symbiotic relationship, though, because if they are a separate species, those little tiny like lice things that keep crawling all over her, it does go into that symbiosis theme that is present throughout a lot of the MonsterVerse since Godzilla King of the Monsters that I do like, such as how Godzilla really needs Mothra and Mothra needs Godzilla. Stuff like that. Kong needs the Middle Earth, or the Hollow Earth. You know, him and Gia, may she rest in peace, kind of thing. So that would kind of play into that. So I would appreciate it if that's what that was, but I'm not quite sure what it was, and honestly, I can't remember. I really just can't remember. But the fact that Titan X is female, I think, is actually awesome. It's wonderful. It's great. I would love to see some more female kaijus. Really, the only big female kaiju that I can think of that, you know, a lot of other people would think of is Mothra. That's the only other one that I can really think of. And I'm not quite sure about Ultraman. Admittedly, not a really big Ultraman guy. I've seen quite a bit of the original Ultraman. Ultra 7. I've seen all of Ultra 7, and I've seen all of Ultraman Jack, but I haven't really watched in completion much of the other stuff. So, there's probably female kaiju within Ultraman, so I apologize, but I just can't remember as of right now. So, sorry about that, but it's Mothra. Mothra is the only other one that I can really think of off the top of my head to such an and to be played up as a female in such an extent as Titan X, or Jiger, I should say, Jiger as well. And I would love to see more, because I think you could play with the fact that you're dealing with a female kaiju as well, you know? And I think that in of itself is just a cool concept. Why not play with it? Why not have more stuff like this? So it was cool to see the Titan X, or that twist reveal that Titan X turns out to be a female, and not only is she female, she's pregnant and trying to lay an egg. I find that kind of interesting. Now, the big problem that I really had with Titan X, and I think it's just because it's not really fleshed out at all. It just kind of manifests itself instead of being foreshadowed more. Kate Randa, she has this psychic connection of sorts to Titan X. Why? Why does she have this connection? What is that connection? Other than thematically, it does kind of fit into that element of legacy, since Titan X had such a big impact. Supposedly, if it had such a big impact on Shaw, Keiko, and Bill that they didn't mention it one bit in season 1. But they, it would play like, oh, now it's this third generation of Shaw-Randa, and they are now connected to these monsters somehow. But it comes out of fucking nowhere. And it isn't even... I'm sorry if it is, and I missed it. I guess that's possible, but I don't think I missed anything here. What is this connection that she has? Why does she have it? Why has she suddenly manifested these psychic powers? That whole thing about her being very upset at the fact that she's now caused all of these problems by the fact that she wanted to get Shaw out of Axis Mundi, that stuff is fine. That stuff is fine. I actually didn't mind any of that. I liked a lot of that. I liked that she needed, especially since she's like, 18? She had to kind of step back and think about all of this and try to process it and grieve even over what she has done. Because what she wanted to do was to help Shaw, granted a kind of good thing. But ultimately, because she did that good thing, she kind of like damned the rest kind of deal. And you can do a lot with that. I mean, that's something, for example, and this is probably just because I've been rewatching it lately, Neon Genesis Evangelion wrestles with all the fucking time. Just do that. And I would have been completely on, and I would have been completely on board. But unfortunately, after she decides to come back and work with Keiko and work with Shaw, it's just dropped. It's just fucking dropped. And replaced with this weird psychic connection that she has with Titan X. And I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it. Yes, you're right, Godzilla Kiru. I think she may have very well been in her 20s, because I did forget. She was an actual teacher, if I recall correctly, because of the events within season 1. Yeah. She wasn't even an assistant teacher. I think she was a teacher. So she'd have to be at least 20 or so. And the only thing that we kind of get out of Kate's psychic connection to Titan X is that, one, she's pregnant, and then 2, Titan X, the reason why she's acting up the way she is because of, while freeing Shaw, she really threw off the migratory path that Titan X usually takes. And I'm like, this is stuff that you don't need a psychic connection to figure out. In fact, that would have given the Monarch team something to do other than just kind of chase the monsters. They could have been the ones to figure out, oh, she's pregnant. And, oh, her path has been thrown off, and then relayed that information to Shaw and the party, and the gang. It would have given them something to do other than just kind of take up space, unfortunately, which again is too bad because I really like that guy. It did have a Gamera and Asagi element to it. You're right, it did. And I wish, again, the writers could have really played that up. And they really didn't. And there's really no excuse for it either, because in Gamera, you just can do it over the course of a movie, right? A 90-minute movie. This was a 10-episode series. So you have roughly 10 hours to tell this story. That's plenty of time to establish this and to figure it out, and the writers didn't do it. And so I summarize that whole ordeal with this. You have a bare, basic plot with razor-thin character stuff, and that is the best we have here with Season 2. Is that. And I don't like it. Now, I swear, I'm just shitting all over this, and I think I'm going to continue to shit all over Season 2, unfortunately, as I go along. But there is stuff that I do really like, because as I said in the beginning, it's okay. The season was okay. I didn't hate it. But there are stuff, and I'm going to praise it later on. And I feel kind of bad here, because I don't like talking about things that I don't like. It's just, to me, a waste of energy. I like discussing things that I do like. Things that bring me joy. Things that make me happy. Things I find cool. Right? Not stuff that drives me up the wall. And while Godzilla vs. Kong, Monarch Season 2 didn't drive me up the wall by any stretch of the imagination, it certainly left me bored and wishing it was more than what it was. Which is not what I had with Season 1 at all. So, I'll say that. Now, unlike Season 1, where character kind of took precedence over the plot ultimately, which again was something I was not expecting, even remotely, for something American Godzilla related, right? Season 2 plot takes precedence over the legacy element of the previous season. I loved that theme of legacy within Season 1. Not only because of the title, right, but also just made sense in terms of the universe itself. That we are now dealing with a multi-generational problem here. And that the sins of the father will ultimately affect the sins of the son kind of deal. And the interconnection between those generations. That's stuff. That's stuff that I explore within my Godzilla series. That's stuff I just like exploring in general. And that's one reason why I ate Season 1 up like it was the best candy ever. And I adored Season 1 so much. In Season 2, that theme of legacy really only is present with one element. And it's the fact that 3 generations are now working together to solve the Titan X problem. That's what that theme has devolved to by this point. I'm sorry. I'm severely disappointed in that. Again, that's as razor bare bones as a plot can get, or as a theme can get. So I do have a bit of a problem with that. But to kind of end this discussion on Titan X, I will say this, and I really did enjoy this a lot, actually. That whole flashback sequence, right? That whole flashback bit within that small town in South America, and them seeing Titan X and the whole culture kind of built around the fact that Titan X is the thing. Honestly, I think that's my favorite episode of the season, was that whole bit, because I loved that episode. And the reason why I loved that episode is because I got what the filmmakers were trying to do. It was very H.P. Lovecraft inspired. Not so much in the cosmic horror realm, right? But certainly inspired by Shadow over Innsmouth. And I love my H.P. Lovecraft. I love H.P. Lovecraft like there's no tomorrow. One of my favorite authors, my favorite horror author, period. Racism aside. And I dug it. I liked the creepiness of it. I liked the mystery behind it. I liked our characters getting drugged. I liked the effect that Titan X has had on this village. And I wanted to learn more. And I think that was the thing that why I liked it so much, is not only was it creepy and paying homage to, one of my favorite authors, but it was just unbelievably interesting. And I wanted to learn more about it. Also, to praise something else that I really liked is that episode 19. Episode 19 is very good. The second to last episode, the penultimate episode, I should say. If that one revealing Titan X in that village isn't my favorite, then the penultimate episode of this season is. The scene where Shaw and Keiko make that big discovery and find Bill's wedding vows, within all of those probes, all accumulating on Skull Island itself. That is where the center of where everything is, and what he's been striving to find so much. I loved that. And it actually had kind of this very sweet, cutesy kind of message to it that really ultimately made Bill my favorite character in all of this, if not my favorite character in the entire MonsterVerse. And it made me kind of wish that he had a bigger presence within Season 2 than he does. He's more kind of an absent character. And because he's gone, we feel his presence everywhere without him actually being there. So I think that kind of makes up for that element. I do like characters where that happens an awful lot. I do like that kind of stuff where they're not actually physically there, but their presence is felt a lot. Hell, Godzilla fits that a lot, But I would genuinely like to see what happens within this season and his story of reaching Skull Island eventually and figuring everything out, the story of Kong Skull Island. I would love to see a story told from his point of view. Monarch and Apex and whatever the hell Isabel is doing. Because Isabel is not part of Apex, but she is. It's like a splinter group from Apex, so it's an underground organization within an underground organization, I guess. I actually wish what they did with Isabel... I honestly would have just had Isabel just working for Apex. I wouldn't have had her be her own splinter group. I wouldn't have had any of that. Just have her be a part of Apex. There's just too many elements to be properly fleshed out. For that to be properly fleshed out. Which they could have had it just been a part of Apex. But it's not. She clearly says this is something else. It's associated with Apex. But it's not Apex. So I wish they fleshed that out a little bit more. But they didn't. So I wish they just kept it Apex. Completely Apex. Make it simple stupid in terms of that. But I love all this infighting between Monarch and Apex. I loved that. I loved the twist that Titan X actually wasn't about to make landfall. And it was a deliberate glitch planted by Apex for Monarch to take the bait of. And I loved that. I absolutely did enjoy that. The facility... where they're also studying creatures from the Hollow Earth. I loved all of that. I loved the infiltration stuff. I mean, it was a little cheesy, don't get me wrong, but I loved a lot of the world building we get within that sequence. And I think that's the key, is you kind of see, so this is what they're doing behind the scenes. This is what Apex is trying to accomplish. This is what Apex is interested in. We don't quite know what their end goal is yet. But we know that this is a direction in which they are going. And I kind of liked all of that. There is a lot of world building within that sequence itself. Let's see. And I do like that there's parallels here. There's parallels between what Apex is doing and what Monarch wants to do and is also doing. The difference is kind of fascinating in the terms that this really reminds me a lot of the SCP Foundation. The SCP Foundation is Monarch, while the Global Occult Coalition, or Chaos Insurgency, kind of a mixture of the two, is Apex. I'm actually curious if the writers were inspired by that at all, because it's so similar. It's so similar. It's these two organizations that are kind of fighting for control over this whole thing with the giant monsters and the Hollow Earth and Axis Mundi and stuff of that nature, and I enjoy it. I enjoy all of that stuff. Because right now it kind of looks like Monarch is kind of wants to protect people by bringing awareness to the kaiju and learning about living with them instead of trying to kill them, while Apex seems to have this guise that they seem to have the guise of that they want this kind of symbiosis, but really want to use the kaiju to further their ultimate goal. What their ultimate goal is, I'm not quite sure. I know it has something to do with Mechagodzilla because of Godzilla vs. Kong, but I don't even think that's the whole picture. And I loved all of that. I even love the mystery of what the hell is Apex even trying to do? What is their end goal? What is their mission statement? Not the one that they have up on placards, but in terms of what their mission is. What is it? And I do enjoy that. I enjoy that quite a bit. I will... This did make me laugh the more I thought about this. I think it was Jim who actually brought it up. I didn't notice it until Jim brought it up, but it is kind of stupid that Monarch has only one ship to monitor Titan X. Shouldn't it have been like a whole fleet? Or at least the United States Navy helping out Monarch? Since Monarch is, a part of the United States government. Godzilla Kiru, I agree with you. I would love to see more done with Apex. I would love to see more done with Monarch as well. I would love there to be a freaking season devoted to just this kind of Cold War that's going on between the two of them. I would be all over that. There's so much you can do with this universe that's really cool. Not just dumb and stupid that we're getting with the movies. You can really kind of get into the nitty-gritties of this universe with this show. And they did a lot of that with Season 1. Season 1 had a lot of that. And that's some of the stuff that I really enjoyed about Season 1. Not so with Season 2. So, like, pre-Godzilla 2014 Monarch, I could see them only having one ship chasing Titan X or monitoring Titan X. But certainly not post-Godzilla. Post-Godzilla, I think in reality they would have had 3, 4, 5, at least 5 ships monitoring this thing. But no, because of the sake of the plot, we only need one ship with one computer. It would have been really cool had Apex actually infiltrated more than just Monarch and tricked everybody into thinking that Titan X was heading that way, when in reality Titan X wasn't there at all. That would have been really cool. But I do applaud this season for making Apex a more interesting idea than just a bad company doing bad things. It's a little more complicated than that, and I appreciate the season for doing it. Because in Godzilla vs. Kong, let's face it, that's exactly what it is. It's the bad, greedy corporation doing bad, greedy corporation-y things. Insert Team America World Police quote here. And this show does some some stuff with it to make Apex not only a more believable organization, but also a more nuanced one, and certainly a more interesting one. There's a mystery behind it all, and I want to know what it is. What is their ultimate goal? What is it exactly that they want? You know, it's a good mystery. It's a good mystery, and also I'm curious who runs it. Who runs Apex? We know it's that guy, from Godzilla vs. Kong, right? But it can't just be him, right? You mean to tell me that after Godzilla vs. Kong, Apex just died? I don't think so. And I would love it if they played that up a little bit more. Speaking of who the hell's running Apex, I would really appreciate it if they established a COC for Monarch as well. What's their hierarchy like? Because there's so much we just don't know. And I would like to know, because I'm into that shit. So let's talk about Godzilla's cameo. Godzilla wanting to kill Titan X, to me, made absolutely perfect sense because of who he is within the MonsterVerse. I think that made perfect sense. Godzilla's a very territorial creature. He just says, nah, I'm going to kill everybody and everything that threatens my domain. And he senses that Titan X is kind of threatening his domain. He's going to kill her. I like that. It made perfect sense. In fact, that entire scene, that fight scene, I loved. I loved all of it. It's this giant, wonderful action piece that I adored. You got Godzilla versus Titan X. You have Monarch trying to stop Isabel's little faction from stealing the Titan X egg. And then you've got Isabel trying to steal Titan X's egg. And on top of that, you also have that sort of moral battle between, what's his name? The guy. And Isabel. And Kate. It was him and Kate. What's the name? Hold on, let me take a look. Is it Kentaro? Yeah, it's Kentaro. You have that happening as well. So you have all of these elements kind of happening all simultaneously during that action sequence, and I love that shit. I love that stuff. And it was a very entertaining fight scene because of it. I was satiated by it. Apparently a lot of people weren't, but I was. I thought it was just fine. And of course, Kong would be the one to understand that Titan X really does mean no harm. Of course it would be Kong. Kong is that kind of character within the MonsterVerse, and it fits perfectly in line with him. I mean, he's a brawler, sure. We certainly see him being a brawler, and he's certainly territorial, just like Godzilla. But it's also established that Kong certainly has more of a heart than Godzilla does. Godzilla doesn't really have a connection to humanity. Kong does. In the very least, he has that because of Gia. Again, may the actress rest in peace. That was very sad. Now, Kong might be angry because the humans have fucked with the forces of nature, quote unquote. But not so much because there's another monster on the loose. It has way more to do with, you're fucking with nature. You're fucking with the order of nature, I should say. And Kong would show mercy. Once he understood this, or once he understood what Titan X was meaning to do. He would show mercy, while Godzilla absolutely would not. He would not give a shit whatsoever. And again, that kind of plays into the idea that I've talked about many, many, many times when it comes to Godzilla and Kong and their dynamic. We love understanding Kong. We like understanding him. We like feeling sympathy for Kong in many ways and understanding him. We love being afraid of Godzilla. And say what you will about the MonsterVerse, as silly as it is, they play that up. And I appreciate them playing that up like mad. We're almost done here. The Hollow Earth versus Axis Mundi is the next bit that I kind of wish to talk about. It's really not a bad idea. I do like the idea that there's multiple like inner universes that are all kind of interconnected in some way, and all of it being kind of beyond our comprehension. Like, the more we try to understand it, only the more questions we end up getting raised, and it ends up being a spiral, and it kind of drives you mad. That's very cosmic horror. That's very cosmic horror, and, you know, I'm a big fan of cosmic horror. So I do like it. I do like that Axis Mundi is something indeed different than Hollow Earth. I do like it that they're two different domains. And I hope they kind of play that up a little bit more. Because to me, Axis Mundi kind of feels like a purgatory. Feels like purgatory. While the Hollow Earth feels like heaven and hell kind of deal. And the Axis Mundi is just like middle ground where time... There's the weird time dilation thing, but where time has no meaning kind of deal, quote unquote. And I do like that. I do like that, and I hope they play that up a little bit. So, about time I fucking wrapped up talking about Monarch, huh? Been talking about it for over an hour now. Overall thoughts, it's okay at best. Season 2 is okay at best. Season 1 was phenomenal. Season 2 is what I thought Season 1 was going to be. Certainly more generic, certainly more general, certainly less creative. Still okay. It was just okay at best. And when Season 3 comes out, I'll enjoy Season 3, if there's going to be a Season 3.